A girl shouted, "Dad, it's her, the woman in the photo." The millionaire stumbled back in shock. Hello, viewer. Thanks for joining us. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from. Now let's continue with the story. She was just another face in the Saturday morning crowd. Another artist with charcoal-stained fingers, creating portraits for families at the Redwood City Farmers Market. Emma Richardson had no idea that 16 years after walking away from the love of her life, a 7-year-old girl with hazel eyes would change everything. "Daddy, that is her. The woman from your graduation picture." Sophie Parker's voice cut through the morning air like lightning. Michael Parker, Silicon Valley entrepreneur worth $8 million, stumbled backward as if struck. The charcoal portrait in Emma's hands fluttered to the ground. 16 years of separation, 16 years of wondering what if, and now his daughter had just recognized the woman who still held the deepest piece of his heart. Some loves are never truly lost. They wait, patient as morning fog over the bay, for the moment when a child's innocent observation brings two souls back home to each other. "Daddy, look at that lady making the drawings. She looks just like someone I know." Michael Parker adjusted his daughter's hand in his as they walked through the Redwood City Farmers Market, the Saturday morning ritual that had become sacred to them both. Sophie always stopped at the artist booths, her 7-year-old eyes drinking in colors and shapes with the intensity of someone born to create. "Oh, really, sweetheart? Who does she remind you of?" Sophie tugged him closer to where a woman sat behind a portable easel, her auburn hair catching the September sunlight as she worked on a charcoal portrait of a young boy. The woman's profile was elegant, focused, her hands moving with the practiced grace of someone who had spent years translating the world into art. "I cannot remember exactly, but I know I have seen her before." Sophie pressed closer to the easel, fascination overriding her usual shyness with strangers. "Excuse me, miss, are you making that picture from your imagination, or are you looking at something real?" The woman looked up, and Michael felt the world tilt sideways. Green eyes, the same ones that had laughed with him through 4 years of college, that had cried when they said goodbye at Stanford graduation 16 years ago. The same small scar above her left eyebrow from a childhood accident. A detail he had memorized during countless study sessions in the library. Emma. The name fell from his lips like a prayer he had forgotten how to say. Her charcoal dropped to the ground. "Michael. Daddy, that is her, the woman from your graduation picture." Sophie's voice rang out with the triumphant joy of solved mystery. "The one in the big frame on your office desk, the one with the pretty green eyes and the scar above her eyebrow." Michael stumbled backward, his successful businessman composure completely shattered. 16 years. 16 years since Emma Richardson had taken that fellowship to New York, since they had promised to find their way back to each other somehow, since life had swept them onto completely different coasts and into entirely separate worlds. Oh my goodness. Emma rose from her chair, her artist apron fluttering in the breeze. "Sophie, is it? You have your father's eyes, but your observational skills are entirely your own. How did you know my name?" "Because your daddy used to tell me that someday he wanted a little girl who loved art as much as I did. And here you are, noticing details that most adults would miss entirely." Michael found his voice, though it came out rougher than he intended. "Emma, I cannot believe it is really you. After all these years, to run into you here of all places. Life has a way of bringing us full circle, does it not?" Emma's smile was warm, genuine, without a trace of the awkwardness he might have expected. "Sophie, would you like to see how I make the shadows look real in this portrait?" "Yes, please." Sophie moved closer, her artistic curiosity overcoming any lingering shyness. Emma picked up a fresh piece of charcoal, her movements sure and practiced. You see, the secret is not just in the dark lines, it is in understanding where the light wants to live. Here, along his cheekbone, the morning sun is creating this gentle glow. So I leave the paper white there, and I build the shadow up from the edges. That is exactly what I try to do when I draw at home, but mine never look as real as yours. That is because you are still learning to see the way artists see. It takes practice, lots and lots of practice. But I can tell you have the gift for it. Michael watched this interaction with something approaching awe. Emma, effortlessly connecting with his daughter, speaking to her as one artist to another. Sophie, responding with an openness he rarely saw her display with adults outside their small circle. Emma, what brings you back to the Bay Area? He asked. Last I heard, you were conquering the New York art scene. A shadow crossed her face, so briefly he almost missed it. Life changes, Michael. My father passed away in April, and I came back to handle his estate. It has been more complicated than I expected, so I have been staying in the area longer than I originally planned. I am so sorry about your father. Professor Richardson was a good man. Thank you. He would have been delighted to know I ran into you again. He always said you were the one who got away. She laughed softly, but there was no bitterness in it. Though I suspect he meant it the other way around. Sophie looked up from studying the charcoal portrait. Miss Emma, why do you make pictures here at the market instead of in a real art studio? Well, I do have a small studio space in my apartment, but I enjoy meeting people here. Families like yours come to the market, and I get to capture something special for them to take home. Plus, I meet interesting people, like a very observant little girl who recognizes someone from a photograph she has seen at home. Michael felt heat creep up his neck. Sophie has always been fascinated by that graduation photo. She asks me about college all the time, and I always tell her about the amazing artist who taught me to see beauty in everyday things. Emma's eyes met his, and for a moment, 16 years collapsed into nothing. They were 22 again, standing in the Stanford Quad, promising each other that distance was just geography, that what they had was stronger than separate coasts and different dreams. Daddy, can we ask Miss Emma to come have lunch with us? Sophie's voice broke through the spell. I want to show her my art supplies at home. And maybe she could teach me more about making shadows look real. Michael looked at Emma, suddenly aware that his heart was beating faster than it had in years. Would you like to join us for lunch? I mean, if you do not have other plans. Sophie would love to show you her artwork, and I would love to hear about what you have been up to all these years. Emma glanced at her easel, then at the portrait commission she had been working on. I should finish this piece for the Morrison family. They are picking it up at 2 o'clock. We could wait, Sophie said immediately. I could watch you work, and maybe you could show me more techniques. Or, Michael found himself saying, you could finish it later. The market is open until 4, right? Have lunch with us, see Sophie's art room, and we can bring you back in time to complete your commission. Emma hesitated, and in that pause, Michael held his breath. This was crazy. He was a successful tech entrepreneur with a 7-year-old daughter, a mortgage in Palo Alto, and a carefully structured life. She was an artist living temporarily in the area, probably eager to resolve her father's estate and return to whatever life she had built in New York. But Sophie was looking at Emma with hopeful eyes, and Emma was looking at him with something that might have been curiosity or might have been the same feeling that was making his chest tight with possibility. You know what? Emma smiled, and it was the same smile that had made him fall in love with her in Professor Hendrick's philosophy class all those years ago. The Morrison family portrait can wait an hour or two. I would love to see what kind of art supplies Sophie has, and I would love to catch up with an old friend. Really? Sophie clapped her hands together. "Daddy, Miss Emma is coming home with us." "It looks like she is, sweetheart." Michael looked at Emma, still barely believing this was real. "Should we help you pack up your easel?" "That would be wonderful. Thank you." As they worked together to fold the easel and gather her art supplies, their hands brushed over the charcoal box. The contact was brief, accidental, but it sent electricity straight up Michael's arm. Emma's eyes flicked to his, and he saw recognition there, awareness that some things had not changed at all. Sophie chattered happily as they walked toward the parking area, already making plans for all the art techniques she wanted Emma to teach her. Michael found himself listening to Emma's laugh, the same melodic sound that had been the soundtrack to the best 4 years of his life. "I still cannot believe this is happening," he said as they reached his car, a practical Tesla Model Y that could safely transport his most precious cargo. 16 years, Emma mused, settling her art supplies in the back. "And your daughter recognizes me from a photograph. Life really is stranger than fiction, is it not?" "The strangest part is how natural this feels," Michael admitted. "Like no time has passed at all." Emma looked at him over Sophie's head as he helped his daughter into her car seat. "I was just thinking the same thing." And as they drove toward the home he had built in Palo Alto, toward the life he had created as a single father and successful businessman, Michael found himself wondering if the best chapters of his story might still be waiting to be written. "This is our house," Sophie announced as Michael pulled into the driveway of his contemporary Palo Alto home, the pride in her voice unmistakable. "Daddy designed it himself, and I have my very own art room." Emma looked at the clean lines of the house, the drought-resistant landscaping, the solar panels glinting on the roof. "It is beautiful, Michael. Very you. Still remember my obsession with sustainable design. Some things never change." She smiled as he came around to help Sophie out of her car seat. "Though I have to admit, I pictured you in some glass tower in San Francisco, not a family neighborhood in Palo Alto. I wanted Sophie to have a real childhood, neighborhood friends, good schools, a backyard where she can play." He hefted Emma's art supplies while Sophie raced ahead to unlock the front door. "The commute to the city is not terrible, and my company is actually based in Redwood City now anyway." "What kind of company did you end up starting?" "Cybersecurity software for healthcare systems. Cloud secure analytics. We protect patient data for hospitals and clinics across the West Coast." Emma paused at the front door. "You actually did it. You took that senior project about medical data protection and built a real company around it. You remember that?" "I remember everything about those days, Michael, including how passionate you were about using technology to help people instead of just making money." Sophie had already disappeared inside, her voice echoing from somewhere deeper in the house. "Miss Emma, come see my art room. It is upstairs next to Daddy's office." "Lead the way," Emma said, but as they stepped into the entryway, she stopped. "Oh, Michael, this is lovely." The house was warm, lived in, filled with the comfortable chaos of a single father raising an artistic child. Sophie's drawings covered the refrigerator. Origami cranes hung from the dining room light fixture, and bookshelves lined the walls, filled with everything from technical manuals to children's art books. "It is not exactly the minimalist bachelor pad you might have expected. It is better. It is a home." Sophie appeared at the top of the stairs, bouncing on her toes. "Are you coming up? I want to show you my easel and my watercolors and the special paper Daddy bought me from that art store in San Francisco." As they climbed the stairs, Emma noticed framed photos lining the wall. Sophie at various ages, always with Michael, a few shots of what looked like extended family gatherings, and there, at the top of the stairs, exactly where Sophie had said it would be, was Michael's office. Emma could see it through the open doorway. A large desk with multiple monitors, bookshelves filled with technical volumes, and there, in a place of honor on the desk, an 8x10 graduation photo from Stanford, the two of them in caps and gowns, laughing at something outside the camera's view, young and bright, and so completely in love it was almost painful to look at. "You kept it," she said softly. Michael followed her gaze. "Of course I kept it. That was one of the happiest days of my life. Even though I left for New York 2 weeks later. Especially because you left for New York. You were following your dreams, Em. That was one of the things I loved most about you." The nickname hit her like a physical blow. No one had called her that in 16 years. "Miss Emma?" Sophie's voice broke the moment. "You are not looking at my art room." "Sorry, sweetheart." "Show me everything." Sophie's art room was a 7-year-old's paradise, an adjustable easel, supplies organized in colorful containers, a small table perfect for detailed work, and natural light streaming in from a large north-facing window. "This is incredible, Sophie. You have professional quality supplies here. Daddy says, if I am going to learn to make art, I should have the right tools to do it properly." Emma picked up a set of watercolor pencils, high-end materials that many adult artists could not afford. "Your daddy is very wise. He got these for my 7th birthday last month. I have been practicing every day, but I cannot make the colors blend the way they do in the books. Would you like me to show you a technique?" "Yes, please." For the next hour, Emma found herself completely absorbed in teaching Sophie watercolor blending techniques. The little girl was a natural, with an instinctive understanding of color and composition that took most people years to develop. Michael appeared in the doorway with glasses of lemonade, watching quietly as Emma guided Sophie through creating graduated color washes. "The secret," Emma was explaining, "is to work while the paper is still damp, but not soaking wet. You want the colors to flow together, but still maintain some control over where they go. Like this." Sophie held up her practice sheet, showing a beautiful transition from yellow to orange to deep red. "Exactly like that. You have a real gift, Sophie. Daddy always says I get my artistic side from someone special, but he never told me who." Emma glanced at Michael over Sophie's head. "Well, talent can come from anywhere. The important thing is that you practice and keep learning. Will you teach me more techniques, please?" "Sophie," Michael said gently, "Miss Emma is visiting today. She has her own work to do, and she probably needs to get back to the farmer's market soon." Emma looked at the clock on Sophie's desk. 1:30. The Morrison family would be expecting their portrait in half an hour. "Actually," she heard herself saying, "I do need to get back to finish that commission. But Sophie, if your father does not mind, maybe I could come back another time and we could work on some more advanced techniques." "Really? You would do that?" Emma looked at Michael, suddenly aware that she was making offers that would require her to stay in the area longer than she had planned. "If it is all right with your father." "I think that would be wonderful," Michael said, and there was something in his voice that made her pulse quicken. "Sophie would love that, and honestly, so would I. It would be nice to catch up properly without the time pressure." "Then it is settled. But right now, I really do need to get back to the market." The drive back to Redwood City was filled with Sophie's chatter about everything she wanted to learn, but Emma found herself acutely aware of Michael beside her, the familiar way he drove, the small gestures that brought back a flood of memories. "Thank you," he said as he pulled into the farmer's market parking area, "for being so wonderful with Sophie. She has not connected with someone new like that in a long time." "She is an extraordinary child, Michael. You should be very proud." "I am. But I also know she's missing something. A female role model, someone who understands the artistic side of her personality." Emma gathered her supplies from the back of the car, suddenly uncertain. Michael, I should tell you that my situation here is temporary. Once my father's estate is settled, I will probably head back to New York. I do not want Sophie to get too attached if I'm not going to be around long term. How long do you think the estate issues will take to resolve? My attorney thinks another 2 months, maybe 3 at the outside. Michael was quiet for a moment. A lot can happen in 2 or 3 months. What do you mean? I mean, maybe you do not have to decide about New York right now. Maybe you can just see how things develop. Emma felt something flutter in her chest. Hope mixed with fear. Michael, I do not want to complicate your life, or Sophie's. You being back in my life could never be a complication. It feels like the first thing that has made complete sense in 16 years. She looked at him, seeing the boy she had fallen in love with in college, but also seeing the man he had become, successful, responsible, devoted to his daughter, but still with that same warmth in his hazel eyes that had made her feel like the most important person in the world. I should go finish that portrait. Of course. But Emma... He caught her hand as she turned to go. Whatever happens with your father's estate, whatever you decide about New York, I am so grateful that Sophie recognized you from that old photograph. I am grateful for today. So am I, she whispered, and as she walked back toward her easel, toward the Morrison family, who was probably already waiting for their portrait, Emma found herself wondering if coming home to California might not be temporary after all. Miss Emma is coming back tomorrow, Sophie announced over breakfast Monday morning, bouncing in her chair with excitement. She said she would teach me how to draw people's faces so they actually look like the real person. Michael smiled over his coffee cup, still not quite believing that Emma Richardson was back in their lives. Yes, she is. But remember, she is doing this as a favor, so you need to be on your best behavior. I am always on my best behavior. Of course you are, sweetheart. The weekend had passed in a blur of anticipation and second-guessing himself. After they had dropped Emma back at the farmer's market on Saturday, Sophie had talked non-stop about her new art teacher. Michael had found himself equally excited and terrified about seeing Emma again. 16 years was a long time. They were different people now, with different lives, different responsibilities. He was a single father running a multi-million-dollar company. She was an artist dealing with family loss and legal complications. What did they really have in common anymore, besides shared memories and a 7-year-old who had fallen in love with her artistic talent? But then he remembered the way Emma had looked at him when their hands brushed over the art supplies. The way her voice had softened when she called him by name, the easy way she had connected with Sophie. Some things, apparently, did not change. His phone buzzed with a text message. Emma. Good morning, Michael. I hope I am not being too forward, but would it be helpful if I brought lunch for all of us today? I remember you used to love Mediterranean food, and there is a wonderful Greek place near my apartment. He found himself smiling as he typed back. That sounds perfect. Sophie loves trying new foods, and I have to admit, my lunch game has not improved much since college. Some things never change. See you at noon. Sophie looked up from her cereal. Was that Miss Emma? Yes, she is bringing lunch for all of us today. I like her, Daddy. She talks to me like I'm a real person, not like some grown-ups who just ask silly questions about school. What kind of silly questions? You know, like, how do you like second grade? When they do not really want to know the answer, Miss Emma asks me real questions about art and colors and why I choose to draw certain things. Michael felt something tighten in his chest. Sophie was right. Emma had treated her like a full person from the moment they met, respecting her intelligence and her artistic instincts. It was something he had not realized his daughter was missing until she found it. Are you excited about your art lesson today? So excited I can barely sit still. Miss Emma said she would show me how to make portraits look three-dimensional instead of flat. And she said she would teach me about something called composition, which is how you arrange things in your picture to make it more interesting. That sounds very advanced. Miss Emma says I am ready for advanced techniques because I understand the basics really well already. At 11:30, Michael found himself checking his reflection in the bathroom mirror, wondering if he was being ridiculous. This was an art lesson for his daughter, not a date. But he had chosen his shirt more carefully than usual, making sure his hair was not sticking up in odd directions, even dabbing on cologne he normally saved for important business meetings. The doorbell rang at exactly noon, and Sophie raced to answer it. Miss Emma, did you bring the special paper you told me about? I brought everything I promised, plus a few surprises. Emma stepped into the entryway, carrying several bags and looking effortlessly beautiful in dark jeans and a flowing green top that brought out her eyes. I hope everyone is hungry. Starving, Michael said, taking the bags from her. Greek food was an inspired choice. I have not had good dolmades in years. I remember you eating about 20 of them at that little place near campus, the one with the terrible service but amazing food. Stavros, I had completely forgotten about that place. I have not forgotten anything about those days, Emma said quietly, and something in her tone made Michael look at her more closely. Neither have I. Sophie tugged on Emma's hand. Can we eat first and then do art, or do art first and then eat? What do you think would be better for your concentration? Sophie considered this seriously. Probably eat first. I think better when my stomach is not making noise. Very wise. Artists need fuel for their creativity. They spread the Greek food across Michael's dining room table, and Emma regaled them with stories about the restaurant owner, a woman named Petra, who had been painting murals in the Bay Area for 30 years and had become something of a mentor to Emma since she returned to California. She told me that coming home sometimes means finding out that the place you left has been waiting for you to grow into the person who could appreciate it properly, Emma said, twirling dolmades around her fork. What do you think she meant? Sophie asked. I think she meant that sometimes we have to go away and learn things before we can understand what we had at home all along. Michael felt Emma's eyes on him as she said this, and he wondered if they were still talking about geography. After lunch, they settled in Sophie's art room, and Emma spread out supplies that made Sophie gasp with delight. A special paper with more texture than anything she had used before. Charcoal pencils in different grades of hardness, blending tools that looked like professional equipment. Today, we are going to work on portrait fundamentals, Emma announced. But first, I want you to draw me exactly the way you see me right now. Do not worry about making it perfect, just capture what you notice most about my face. Sophie set to work with intense concentration, her tongue poking out slightly as she focused. Michael watched Emma watching his daughter, seeing the gentle way she offered suggestions without taking over, the way she encouraged Sophie's natural instincts while teaching her new techniques. You are a natural teacher, he said softly. I love watching someone discover what they are capable of. Sophie has real talent. Michael, I hope you know how special she is. I do, but I also worry that I am not giving her everything she needs. The artistic side of her education. I mean, I can teach her about technology and business and practical things, but art, he gestured helplessly. Art is not something you can just teach from books. It requires mentorship, hands-on guidance, someone who understands the creative process. Emma paused. You know, I have been thinking about something since Saturday. What? Well, my apartment in Redwood City is very small, and I do not have proper studio space. I have been doing most of my serious work at the kitchen table, which is not ideal for larger pieces." Michael felt his pulse quicken. "What are you thinking? You mentioned that you have an unused room upstairs, next to your office. I was wondering—" She hesitated. "This might be a terrible idea, and please feel free to say no, but would you consider letting me use that space as a studio? In exchange, I could give Sophie regular art lessons, proper instruction that would really help her develop her skills." Michael stared at her, hardly believing what he was hearing. "You want to work here? Only if it would not be too much of an imposition. I know it would mean having me around more often, and I do not want to disrupt your routines or make things awkward." "Awkward?" Michael laughed. "Emma, having you here would be the opposite of awkward. Sophie would be over the moon, and honestly, so would I." "Really? Really? That room has been sitting empty since I moved in 3 years ago. I never knew what to do with it, but an artist's studio would be perfect." Sophie looked up from her drawing. "Miss Emma, are you going to have your studio here, in our house? Would you like that?" "Yes!" Sophie jumped up and threw her arms around Emma's waist. "That would be the best thing ever. You could teach me art every day, and I could watch you work on your paintings, and maybe you could even eat dinner with us sometimes." Emma looked at Michael over Sophie's head, and he saw vulnerability there, uncertainty mixed with hope. "If you are sure it would not be too much trouble," she said. "Emma, it would not be trouble. It would be—" He searched for the right word. "It would be wonderful. Then I accept your very generous offer with gratitude." "When can you start?" Sophie demanded. Emma laughed. "Well, I suppose I could bring some supplies over tomorrow and we could take a look at the space together. But first, you need to finish this portrait so I can see how much you have learned today." As Sophie returned to her drawing with renewed excitement, Michael found himself looking at Emma with something approaching amazement. She was going to be here, in his house, working in the room next to his office. They would see each other regularly, share meals, watch Sophie grow as an artist together. It felt like the most natural thing in the world, and also like the most terrifying leap of faith he had ever taken. But as Emma smiled at him across Sophie's bent head, as his daughter chattered happily about all the art projects they could work on together, Michael thought that maybe the best decisions in life were the ones that felt both completely right and completely terrifying at exactly the same time. "Daddy, look!" Sophie held up her portrait of Emma, and both adults gasped. It was remarkable for a 7-year-old's work, capturing not just Emma's features, but something essential about her expression, the warmth in her eyes, the gentle way she held her head when she was listening. "Sophie, this is incredible," Emma breathed. "You have captured something I see in the mirror every morning, but could never put into words." "What is that?" "Hope," Emma said simply. "You have drawn hope." Michael looked at the drawing, then at Emma, then at his daughter's proud, beaming face, and realized that Sophie had captured exactly what he was feeling too: hope, and the sense that their little family of 2 was about to become something entirely new and wonderful. The next morning, Emma arrived with 3 boxes of art supplies, a folding table, and a canvas bag that clinked with the sound of glass jars. "I brought everything I thought I might need to get started," she said, slightly out of breath from carrying everything up the stairs. "Though I have to admit, I may have gotten a little carried away at the art supply store yesterday." Michael hefted the largest box, surprised by its weight. "What exactly is in here?" "Oil paints, acrylics, watercolors, brushes in every size known to humanity, and about 6 different types of paper." Emma laughed. "I told you I got carried away." The unused room upstairs was larger than Emma had expected, with 2 windows that offered excellent natural light and enough space for both storage and active work areas. "This is perfect, Michael. Are you absolutely sure you do not mind me taking it over completely? Mind, Emma, this room has been completely wasted for 3 years. Having it become a working artist studio is probably the best thing that could happen to it. Sophie appeared in the doorway, having raced upstairs the moment she heard Emma's voice. Can I help set up the studio? I know where everything should go. I would love your help, Emma said. You know your own house much better than I do. As they unpacked supplies and arranged furniture, Michael found himself watching Emma move around the space, already envisioning how she would use each corner, where the light would fall at different times of day, how the room would function as her creative headquarters. You mentioned on Saturday that you do portrait commissions at the farmers' market, he said. Will you be able to work on larger pieces here? That is exactly what I was hoping. I have been wanting to return to larger canvas work, but I have not had the space or the proper setup since I left New York. Emma held up a medium-sized canvas, testing how it looked in the natural light. I was thinking about doing a series of California landscape pieces, maybe something that captures the way the light changes throughout the day in different seasons. That sounds amazing. I would love to see your process. Really? Most people find watching an artist work pretty boring, lots of staring at the canvas, making tiny adjustments, starting over when something is not quite right. I think I would find it fascinating. Sophie had discovered Emma's collection of brushes and was arranging them by size with the methodical precision of someone who understood the importance of organization in creative work. Miss Emma, when you paint big pictures, do you know what they are going to look like before you start, or do you discover it as you go? That is an excellent question, Sophie. It depends on the piece. Sometimes I have a very clear vision of what I want to create, and the challenge is translating that vision onto canvas. But sometimes the painting tells me what it wants to be as I work on it. How can a painting tell you things? Emma sat down on the floor next to Sophie, clearly taking the question seriously. Well, maybe I put a stroke of blue in one corner, and suddenly I realized that the whole piece wants to be about water, or sky, or the feeling of a rainy day. The materials and the process itself become part of the creative decision-making. That sounds like magic. In some ways, it is. That is why I love what I do. Michael watched this exchange with something approaching awe. Emma was not talking down to Sophie or oversimplifying complex ideas. She was treating his 7-year-old daughter as a fellow artist, someone capable of understanding sophisticated concepts about creativity and process. Emma, can I ask you something? He said. Of course. What made you decide to come back to California? I mean, beyond your father's estate. You had built a life in New York, established connections in the art world there. Emma was quiet for a moment, arranging paintbrushes in a ceramic holder. Honestly, I think I was ready for a change even before my father died. New York was wonderful for my 20s and early 30s, but lately I had been feeling like I was going through the motions. Same galleries, same social circles, same kinds of commissioned work. Were you unhappy there? Not unhappy, exactly, but not fulfilled either. I felt like I was painting the same painting over and over again, just with slight variations. She looked around the room, which was already beginning to feel like a working studio. Being back here, there is something about the light, the landscape, even the cultural pace that is inspiring me in ways I had forgotten were possible. Plus, Sophie added with 7-year-old logic, now you get to teach me art, and I am a very good student. Yes, Emma smiled, that is definitely an added bonus. By the end of the morning, the studio was fully functional. Emma had set up different stations for different types of work, arranged her supplies for easy access, and even hung a few small pieces she had brought from New York to help the space feel like home. I cannot believe how perfect this is, she said, standing in the center of the room and turning slowly to take it all in. "Michael, I do not know how to thank you." "Thank me. Emma, you are doing us the favor. Sophie is going to learn more about art in the next few months than I could teach her in years. And I get to have my very own professional art teacher living right here in our house," Sophie added. "It is like having Christmas every day." Emma laughed. "Well, we should probably establish some ground rules so that it does not become too much of a good thing. How about this? I will work up here most mornings, and Sophie, you can have a proper art lesson 3 afternoons a week. That way, you still have time for other activities and homework, and I have time to focus on my own work." "That sounds perfect," Michael said. "And Emma, please feel free to use the house as if it were your own. Kitchen, living room, whatever you need." "That is very generous. It is practical. If you are going to be working here regularly, you should be comfortable." Over lunch, Emma told them about her plans for the landscape series she wanted to start, and Sophie shared detailed observations about how the light in the house changed throughout the day, information that would be useful for an artist planning her work schedule. "You really have been paying attention to light and shadow," Emma said admiringly. "That is advanced thinking for someone your age. Daddy always says that details matter, whether you are building a computer program or baking cookies or anything else. Your father is a wise man." After lunch, Emma walked through the house with the eye of someone who was beginning to see it as her workplace, noticing things about the natural light patterns and spatial flow that Michael had never considered. "You have created a beautiful home here," she said, as they stood in his living room, looking out at the small backyard where Sophie was playing on her swing set. "It is not exactly what I pictured when I was 22. "What did you picture?" Michael thought about it. "Honestly, I pictured something much more like what I imagine your New York life was like. Urban, sophisticated, focused on career achievement. I never saw myself as someone who would prioritize a backyard and good school districts. What changed? Sophie changed everything. The moment she was born, all my priorities shifted completely. Suddenly, success was not about building the biggest company or making the most money. It was about creating a stable, loving environment where she could grow up to become whoever she was meant to be." Emma was quiet, watching Sophie through the window. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. "The path your life took?" Michael looked at her, standing in his living room, sunlight from the window bringing out the auburn highlights in her hair, and realized he was looking at the one piece of his younger dreams that he had never stopped missing. "No," he said, "I do not regret any of it. But I have to admit, having you here feels like getting back something I did not realize I had been missing." Emma turned to face him, and for a moment, the air between them felt charged with possibility and 16 years of unfinished business. "I should get back upstairs," she said finally. "I want to start sketching some ideas for the landscape series while the afternoon light is still good." "Of course." "I should get some work done too." But as Emma headed upstairs to her new studio and Michael settled into his home office with his laptop, both of them were acutely aware of each other's presence in the house, of how easily they had fallen into a domestic rhythm that felt both completely new and like something they had been doing for years. 3 weeks into the new arrangement, Michael found himself looking forward to the sounds of Emma working upstairs with an intensity that both surprised and concerned him. The soft scratch of charcoal on paper, her footsteps moving between easel and supply table, the occasional burst of delighted laughter when Sophie mastered a new technique. His house had become alive in ways he had not realized it was missing. "Daddy, come see what Miss Emma taught me about perspective," Sophie called from the top of the stairs, her voice bright with accomplishment. Michael saved his work and climbed the stairs, drawn as much by the excuse to see Emma as by his daughter's latest artistic breakthrough. He found them both in the studio, Emma standing behind Sophie as she worked on a drawing of their backyard that showed remarkable depth for a 7-year-old's work. "Look," Sophie said proudly. "The swing set is bigger in the front because it is closer, and the fence gets smaller and smaller until it almost disappears at the end. Miss Emma says that is how our eyes really see things, and if you draw it that way, it looks three-dimensional instead of flat. That is incredible, sweetheart." Michael studied the drawing, genuinely impressed. "It looks like I could walk right into this picture. The technical term is linear perspective," Emma said, and Michael caught the subtle scent of her perfume as she moved closer to point out specific elements in Sophie's work. "Sophie has grasped it much faster than most of my adult students ever did. She has had an exceptional teacher." Their eyes met across Sophie's bent head, and Michael felt that familiar jolt of awareness that had been growing stronger with each passing day. Emma's cheeks flushed slightly, and she looked away first, focusing on Sophie's drawing with perhaps more attention than it required. "Miss Emma, could you show Daddy the painting you started yesterday, the one of the mountains?" "Oh, Sophie, I'm not sure it is ready for viewing yet." "Please, it is so beautiful, and Daddy loves looking at art." Emma hesitated, then gestured toward an easel positioned to catch the afternoon light from the west window. "It is just a beginning study, really. I am trying to capture how the Santa Cruz Mountains look from your backyard at different times of day." Michael moved closer to the canvas, which showed the familiar mountain silhouette rendered in layers of blue and green, with late afternoon light creating dramatic shadows across the peaks. "Emma, this is breathtaking. You have captured exactly how those mountains look when I am drinking my morning coffee on the back deck." "You really think so?" "I know so. I look at that view every day, and you have somehow made it more beautiful than it actually is. That is the goal of landscape painting, I suppose, to show people the extraordinary beauty that exists in the ordinary moments they might otherwise take for granted." Sophie looked between them, her 7-year-old intuition picking up on something in the adult conversation. "Are you going to put this painting somewhere in our house when it is finished?" "Well, technically it would be Miss Emma's painting to do with as she pleases. But she made it here, in our house, looking at our view. That makes it kind of belong here too, does not it?" Emma laughed. "That is actually a very sophisticated way to think about the relationship between art and place, Sophie. So can it stay here? We will see. It is not finished yet, and I have not decided what I want to do with the landscape series once it is complete." Michael found himself hoping desperately that Emma would want to leave the painting in their home, that she would want some part of her creative work to remain connected to this house, to their life together. "Are you planning to show the landscape series in galleries?" he asked. "I have been thinking about it. Petra, my friend who owns the Greek restaurant, has connections with some Bay Area galleries. She thinks there might be interest in work that captures the California landscape from a returning native's perspective." "That sounds like a wonderful exhibition concept. It would be my first solo show since returning from New York. Rather terrifying, actually." "You will be amazing," Sophie said with complete confidence. "Your paintings make people feel things. That is what good art does, right?" "Right again. You're going to make an excellent artist yourself someday with insights like that." As the afternoon moved toward evening, Sophie reluctantly transitioned from art time to homework time, leaving Michael and Emma alone in the studio. The late light streaming through the windows created an intimate atmosphere, and Michael found himself reluctant to return to his own work. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said, cleaning brushes at the small sink Michael had installed in the corner of the room. "Anything. What is it like, raising Sophie on your own? I mean, you make it look effortless, but it must be incredibly challenging at times." Michael leaned against the window frame, watching Emma's careful, practiced movements as she tended to her brushes. Some days are harder than others. The hardest part is not having someone to share the big moments with or to talk through decisions about her future. What about Sophie's mother? Do they stay in touch? They video chat once a month, but Sarah has built a whole new life in Australia. Sophie knows her mother loves her, but she also understands that we are her primary family now. Emma nodded thoughtfully. That must be lonely for you sometimes. It can be. But watching Sophie grow into this incredible little person, seeing her discover her talents and develop her own personality, it is worth every sleepless night and every moment of uncertainty. She is lucky to have you. I think I am the lucky one. Emma dried her hands on a towel, and for a moment they simply stood in comfortable silence, the studio around them evidence of how naturally their lives had begun to intertwine. Michael, can I tell you something that might sound strange? Of course. Working here, being part of Sophie's daily life, even just having breakfast with you both in the mornings, it feels like coming home in a way I have not experienced since I was in college, not just geographically but emotionally. Michael felt his heart rate accelerate. It does not sound strange at all. I was thinking the same thing. Were you? Having you here has made me realize how much of myself I had put on hold while I focused on building the company and raising Sophie. Not that I regret those priorities, but there are parts of who I used to be that I had forgotten about entirely. What parts? The part that could spend hours talking about art and philosophy and ideas that have nothing to do with quarterly earnings or school pickup schedules. The part that believed in taking risks for the sake of beauty and meaning instead of just security and stability. Emma moved closer, close enough that he could see the paint stain on her left thumbnail, the way her green eyes seemed to hold flecks of gold in the late afternoon light. Maybe those parts do not have to stay forgotten, she said softly. Maybe they do not. The moment stretched between them, loaded with possibility and 16 years of unfinished business. Michael found himself studying Emma's face, noting the small changes that time had brought, but also recognizing the essential Emma-ness that remained unchanged. The way she tilted her head when she was thinking, the unconscious grace of her gestures, the warmth that seemed to radiate from her presence. Daddy, Miss Emma, dinner time. Sophie's voice carried up from the kitchen, breaking the spell. Emma stepped back, her cheeks flushed. We should go downstairs. Yes, we should. But as they headed toward the kitchen, where Sophie had already set 3 places at the table with the automatic assumption that Emma would join them for dinner, Michael found himself thinking that the most important moments in life often happened in the spaces between intention and action, in the almost touches and unfinished sentences that carried more weight than any declaration. 2 days later, Emma knocked on Michael's home office door at 9 in the evening, long after Sophie had gone to bed. I am sorry to bother you so late, but I saw your light was still on, and I was wondering if I could talk to you about something. Michael looked up from his laptop, where he'd been reviewing quarterly reports that had failed to hold his attention for the past hour. Emma stood in the doorway, wearing paint-splattered jeans and an oversized sweater, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and he thought she had never looked more beautiful. Of course. Come in. Is everything all right? Emma entered the office but remained standing, her hands clasped in front of her. I heard back from my attorney today about my father's estate. Michael felt his stomach drop. Good news or bad news? Good news, mostly. The disputed property development has been resolved in my favor, and the estate assets should be available within the next 2 weeks. That is wonderful, Emma. You must be so relieved. I am, but it also means I need to make some decisions about my future plans. Michael set aside his laptop, giving her his full attention, even as his heart began to race with anxiety about what she might be planning to tell him. What kinds of decisions? Emma moved to the window, looking out at the quiet neighborhood street. I have enough money now to go anywhere, do anything. I could go back to New York and pick up where I left off. I could travel, explore new places, start fresh somewhere entirely different. What do you want to do? That is the problem. For the first time in months, I have complete freedom to choose my own path, and I have no idea what I actually want. Michael joined her at the window, maintaining a careful distance, even as every instinct told him to close the space between them. What does your heart tell you? Emma was quiet for a long moment. My heart tells me that I have been happier in the past 3 weeks than I've been in years. That working in your house, teaching Sophie, even just sharing breakfast with you both in the mornings, feels more like real life than anything I was doing in New York. Then maybe you should listen to your heart. But what if I am just romanticizing the situation because it feels safe and comfortable after months of uncertainty? What if I am making a decision based on nostalgia rather than what is actually best for my career and my future? Michael turned to face her, studying her profile in the soft light from his desk lamp. Emma, can I ask you something? Yes. When you wake up in the morning, what is the first thing you think about? She turned to meet his eyes. Usually, I think about what I want to teach Sophie that day, or what I want to work on in the studio, or whether you will have time to look at whatever I'm painting and tell me what you think. And when you were in New York, what did you think about first thing in the morning? Emma was quiet, considering logistics, mostly. Which gallery appointment I had that day, whether I had enough rent money for the month, what I needed to accomplish to stay afloat professionally. Does that tell you anything? That my life here has become more about relationships and creativity and less about survival and career strategy. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Emma smiled, and it was the first genuine smile he had seen from her all evening. It is a very good thing, actually. I had forgotten that work could feel like play, that teaching could be as fulfilling as creating, that home could be a place where you want to spend time instead of just where you sleep between obligations. Michael felt hope rising in his chest, but he was careful to keep his voice neutral. So what are you going to do? I think I'm going to stay in California. Probably not here in this house forever, but somewhere in the Bay Area where I can continue working with Sophie and building relationships in the local art community. Sophie is going to be thrilled. What about you? Will you be thrilled or just relieved that Sophie's art teacher is not disappearing? The question was asked lightly, but Michael heard the vulnerability underneath it. The need to know that her presence in his life mattered to him as more than just a convenience for his daughter. Emma, having you here has been the best thing that has happened to me in years, not just for Sophie, though she adores you, but for me personally. You have reminded me of parts of myself that I had forgotten existed. Which parts? The part that believes in beauty for its own sake. The part that can get lost in a conversation about ideas and forget that there are emails waiting to be answered. The part that remembers what it feels like to be excited about coming home at the end of the day. Emma moved closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume mixed with the faint scent of paint and turpentine that seemed to follow her everywhere. I have been afraid to let myself hope that this could be permanent, she said softly. It has felt too good to be true, too perfect to last. Mom, what if it does not have to be perfect to last? What if it just has to be real? Is it real for you, Michael? This feeling that we are building something together? Michael looked into her eyes, seeing his own hopes and fears reflected back at him, and realized that this was the moment when he had to choose between the safety of keeping his feelings unspoken and the risk of admitting how much she had come to mean to him. "It is the most real thing in my life," he said quietly. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "I was hoping you would say that." "Were you?" "I have been falling in love with this life we have created together. With the morning conversations over coffee, with watching you be an amazing father to Sophie, with the way you look at my paintings like they matter, like they are worth your time and attention. They do matter. You matter, Emma. More than I think you realize." Emma reached out and touched his hand, a simple gesture that sent electricity straight to his heart. "I want to stay, Michael. Not just in California, but here, with you and Sophie, building whatever this is that we are creating together. Are you sure?" "I have never been more sure of anything in my life." Michael turned his hand palm up, interlacing their fingers, and for a moment they simply stood there, holding hands in his home office, surrounded by the evidence of his responsible adult life, acknowledging that they were about to change everything. "So what happens now?" Emma asked. "Now we take it one day at a time. We see how this develops naturally, without putting pressure on ourselves or on Sophie to figure everything out immediately." "That sounds perfect." "Does it?" "Michael, for the first time since I came back to California, I feel like I am exactly where I am supposed to be." And as they stood together in the quiet house, with Sophie sleeping peacefully upstairs and 16 years of separation finally feeling like ancient history, Michael thought that maybe the best love stories were not the ones that happened fast and dramatically, but the ones that grew slowly and naturally from friendship and compatibility and the simple joy of sharing daily life with someone who made ordinary moments feel extraordinary. The next morning brought unseasonably warm weather for October, and Emma suggested they have breakfast on the back deck so Sophie could see her landscape painting location firsthand. "See how the light hits the mountains differently now than it did yesterday afternoon," Emma said, gesturing toward the Santa Cruz range with a piece of toast. "That is why landscape artists have to work quickly, or work from memory and photos. The light is constantly changing." Sophie studied the view with the intense concentration she brought to all things art-related. "The shadows are longer now, and the colors look cooler, more blue and less gold." "Exactly. You are developing a real artist's eye for light and color." Michael watched this exchange while sipping his coffee, marveling at how seamlessly Emma had become part of their morning routine. 3 weeks ago, breakfast had been a hurried affair of cereal and backpack checks and rushing to get Sophie to school on time. Now it was a leisurely conversation about art and light and observation, with plenty of time for Sophie to absorb Emma's gentle lessons about seeing the world through creative eyes. "Miss Emma, when you finish the mountain painting, will you start a new one right away, or will you work on a different kind of picture?" "I think I will work on a series of mountain paintings, actually. The same view, but at different times of day and in different seasons. That way, people can see how one place can look completely different depending on when you observe it. Like how Daddy looks different when he first wakes up versus when he is ready for work." Emma laughed. "Exactly like that. Light and context change everything." Michael felt his cheeks warm. "I was not aware that my morning appearance was under such close artistic scrutiny." "Everything is under artistic scrutiny in this house now," Sophie announced cheerfully. "Miss Emma taught me to notice details, so now I notice details about everything." "Is that so?" "Yes, like how you smile differently when Miss Emma is talking than when you are just smiling regular smiles. And how Miss Emma gets a little crease between her eyebrows when she's thinking hard about her paintings, and how both of you seem happier when we are all together than when you are by yourselves." Emma nearly choked on her orange juice. Sophie, you are very observant. Is it bad to notice things like that? Not bad at all, Michael said carefully, just very perceptive. After Sophie left for school, Michael and Emma lingered over their coffee, neither seeming eager to transition to the workday quite yet. She is right, you know, Emma said quietly. About what? About being happier when we are all together. I've been thinking about it since our conversation last night, and I realized that the moments when I feel most like myself are the ones when the three of us are doing something together. Breakfast, or looking at Sophie's artwork, or just sitting in the living room in the evening. I have noticed that too. It feels like family, does not it? Michael felt his heart skip. Yes, it does. Is that terrifying or wonderful? Both. Emma reached across the table and touched his hand. The same simple gesture from the night before that now felt loaded with new meaning. Michael, I need to tell you something. What? Last night, when I told you I wanted to stay, I was not just talking about staying in California. I was talking about staying here with you and Sophie, building a life together. Michael felt the world shift around him, all his careful plans for taking things slowly suddenly seeming inadequate for the magnitude of what Emma was offering. Emma, are you saying what I think you are saying? I am saying that I have been in love with you since I was 19 years old, and being here with you again has made me realize that I never actually stopped. I'm saying that Sophie feels like the daughter I never had, but always wanted. I am saying that this house feels more like home than anywhere I have lived in 16 years. Michael stared at her, hardly believing what he was hearing. Are you sure? Because once we cross this line, once we acknowledge that this is more than just a temporary arrangement or a nostalgic reconnection, everything changes. I want everything to change, Michael. I want to wake up in this house every morning and have breakfast with you and Sophie. I want to teach her to paint and watch her grow up and be there for all the important moments. I want to build a studio where I can create my best work and know that you will be there to see it. I want to be part of your life, not just a visitor in it. Michael stood up and moved around the table, pulling Emma to her feet and into his arms before he could second-guess himself. I love you, he said, the words coming out in a rush of relief and joy and terror. I've been trying not to admit it even to myself, but I love you, Emma. I love how you see the world, how you see Sophie, how you see me. I love the way you make this house feel alive. I love the future I can imagine with you in it. Really? Really? Emma reached up and touched his face, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. I was so afraid you were going to tell me this was moving too fast, that we should be more careful, more practical. Maybe we should be. But I have spent 16 years being careful and practical, and it has gotten me a successful company and a beautiful daughter and a very nice house, but it has not gotten me the one thing I have wanted most, which is you. A partnership with someone who understands me, who challenges me, who makes me want to be the best version of myself. Someone who loves Sophie as much as I do and who can help me give her the kind of childhood she deserves. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Are you asking me to marry you? Michael felt panic and joy hit him simultaneously. I am asking you to build a life with me. Marriage, living together, whatever form that takes, I just want you to be my partner in everything. Yes. Yes. Yes to all of it. Yes to building a life together. Yes to being Sophie's second parent. Yes to marriage when we are ready for that step. Yes to everything, Michael. And then he was kissing her, 16 years of wondering and hoping and missing her condensed into one perfect moment of recognition and homecoming. Emma kissed him back with equal intensity, and Michael thought that some loves were worth waiting for, worth all the years of separation and uncertainty, because when they finally came together, they were stronger for having been tested. "Daddy, Miss Emma, I forgot my lunchbox." They broke apart as Sophie's voice carried from the front door, both of them laughing at the timing. "Some things never change," Emma said breathlessly. "Thank goodness for that," Michael replied, and went to help his daughter find her forgotten lunch, while Emma straightened her hair and tried to compose herself. But as they handled the minor crisis of the missing lunchbox, as Emma helped Sophie gather her art supplies for the school project she had forgotten to mention, as they all worked together with the easy coordination of people who had been sharing daily life for much longer than 3 weeks, Michael realized that they had already become a family. The conversation and the kiss had simply made it official. That afternoon, while Sophie was at school and Emma was working in her studio, Michael found himself unable to concentrate on anything. He kept looking up at the ceiling, hearing the soft sounds of Emma moving around above him, and feeling amazed that she was really going to stay. Around 3 o'clock, he gave up on productivity entirely and climbed the stairs to the studio. "Am I interrupting?" he asked from the doorway. Emma looked up from her easel, where she was adding layers of color to the mountain landscape. Her face was focused and serene, and Michael thought he had never seen her look more beautiful. "Never. I was just thinking about you, actually." "Good thoughts, I hope." "The best thoughts." Emma set down her brush and moved toward him. "I was thinking about how surreal this all feels. This morning I was Emma Richardson, visiting artist and temporary house guest. Now I am Emma Richardson, future member of the Parker family. How does that feel? Terrifying and wonderful and absolutely right, all at the same time." Michael entered the studio fully, drawn to the painting Emma had been working on. The mountain landscape was more detailed now, with layers of color and shadow that captured not just the visual reality of the view, but something emotional about what it felt like to look at those mountains from this specific place. "This is incredible, Emma. It is not just a painting of the mountains. It is a painting of what it feels like to be home." "That is exactly what I was trying to capture. The sense of belonging, of having found the place where you are meant to be. You have succeeded completely." Emma moved to stand beside him, both of them studying the painting. "I want to give it to you and Sophie when it is finished. Emma, you could sell this to any gallery in the Bay Area." "I do not want to sell it. I want it to live here, in the place that inspired it, with the people who make this place feel like home." Michael turned to look at her, still adjusting to the reality that she was really going to be part of his life permanently. "Are you sure about this, Em? About all of it? Because once Sophie knows you are staying permanently, once we tell her that you are going to be part of our family officially, she is going to be so attached that leaving would break her heart." "I am not going to leave, Michael. I know it is fast. I know we have only been back in each other's lives for 3 weeks, but this feels like the decision I have been moving toward my entire adult life without realizing it." "What do you mean?" Emma sat down on the small sofa Michael had moved into the studio for her comfort, and he joined her. "I have been thinking about why I never felt truly settled in New York, why none of my relationships there ever felt quite right, why I always felt like I was waiting for something to begin instead of living my actual life. And I think I was waiting to come home, not just geographically but emotionally. I was waiting to find the person and the place where I could be completely myself, where my work and my relationships and my daily life all felt integrated and authentic. And you think you have found that here? I know I have. Michael, when I wake up in this house, I do not feel like I'm playing a role or trying to be someone I think I should be. I feel like myself, but the best version of myself. The version who is confident in her work, who has something meaningful to contribute to someone else's life, who is part of something larger than her own ambitions and insecurities. Michael reached for her hand, interlacing their fingers in the gesture that was already becoming natural between them. I feel the same way. For years, I have been Michael the successful entrepreneur, Michael the devoted single father, Michael who has his life completely under control. But with you, I also get to be Michael, who believes in beauty and magic and taking risks for love. Michael, who can imagine a future that is about more than just security and achievement. So we are really doing this. We are really doing this. Emma leaned against his shoulder, and they sat in comfortable silence, looking out the studio windows at the view that would soon belong to both of them, that Emma was transforming into art that would hang in their shared home. "There is one more thing I want to tell you," Emma said eventually. "What? I called Petra this morning before I had the courage to talk to you about staying. I told her I wanted to put together a proposal for a solo exhibition of California landscape paintings, and I asked if she thought any local galleries would be interested. What did she say? She said she has been waiting for me to find the confidence to propose something like that since the day I got back from New York. She thinks there is definitely interest, especially if the paintings are connected to a larger narrative about returning home and finding your place in the world." Michael felt pride swell in his chest. "Emma, that is wonderful. Your first California exhibition. Our first California exhibition. These paintings are as much about the life I am building with you and Sophie as they are about the landscape itself. I cannot wait to see the whole series. I cannot wait to create them. For the first time in years, I have more ideas than I have time to execute. I want to paint this view in every season, at every time of day. I want to capture what our life looks like from the inside." Michael turned to kiss her temple, breathing in the scent of paint and turpentine and the perfume that was becoming as familiar as his own reflection. "I love you," he said quietly. "I love you too." And as they sat together in the studio that would be Emma's creative headquarters for years to come, surrounded by the evidence of her talent and the view that would inspire countless future paintings, Michael thought that the best dreams were the ones you did not know you were dreaming until they came true. Sophie's reaction to the news that Emma was staying permanently was everything Michael had hoped for, and more. "Forever and ever?" she asked, bouncing in her chair at dinner, her eyes bright with joy. "Forever and ever," Emma confirmed. "I am going to find an apartment nearby, and I will keep teaching you art, and I will be part of your family in whatever way feels right to all of us." "But why do you need an apartment? You already live here." Michael and Emma exchanged glances across the dinner table, both of them struggling with how to explain adult relationship progression to a 7-year-old. "Well, sweetheart, Miss Emma and I are still figuring out exactly what our relationship is going to look like," Michael said carefully. "We want to take our time and make sure we are making good decisions for everyone." "But you love each other, right?" Emma nearly choked on her water. "Sophie, what makes you say that?" "Because you look at each other the way Prince Eric looks at Ariel in The Little Mermaid, and because you both smile more when you are together. And because this morning, when I forgot my lunchbox, you were standing really close together, and you both looked happy and embarrassed at the same time." Michael felt heat creep up his neck. "You are very observant, Sophie." "So do you love each other or not?" Emma reached across the table and took Sophie's hand. "Yes, sweetie, we do love each other. But loving someone and deciding to build a life together are two different things, and we want to make sure we do everything in the right order so that our family is strong and happy." "What is the right order?" "First, we make sure you are comfortable with all the changes. Then we spend more time together as a family, making sure we all get along well and that Miss Emma being here makes everyone happier, not more stressed. Then, if everything goes well, we might decide that Miss Emma should live here all the time. Sophie considered this seriously. How long does all that take? There is no timeline, sweetheart. We will just see how it feels as we go. Can I tell you how it feels to me right now? Of course, Michael said. It feels like Miss Emma already belongs here. It feels like she is already part of our family, and the only thing left is to make it official. Emma's eyes filled with tears. That is the most wonderful thing anyone has ever said to me, Sophie. So, can we make it official soon? Michael laughed. How about we start with Miss Emma staying for dinner more often and coming to your school art show next week? Then we can see how that goes. Deal. But I think you're going to discover that everything feels perfect, and then you will realize that you were just being scared for no reason. After Sophie went to bed, Michael and Emma sat on the living room couch, both of them processing the conversation. She is not wrong, Emma said quietly. About what? About us being scared for no reason. I've been so worried about moving too fast, about making decisions based on emotion instead of logic. But the truth is that every logical consideration points to this being right. We are compatible. We share values. We both want the same kind of life. Sophie is thriving with me here. You seem happier than you have been in years. What exactly are we waiting for? Michael pulled her closer on the couch, enjoying the simple pleasure of having her tucked against his side. I suppose I am waiting for the other shoe to drop, for you to realize that suburban family life is not as exciting as the art world in New York, for Sophie to get tired of having a new person in her space, for something to go wrong. And I suppose I'm waiting for you to realize that I am not the same person I was in college, that I have baggage and insecurities and creative ambitions that might not fit neatly into your well-organized life. Do you want to know what I realized today? What? That waiting for something to go wrong is just another way of avoiding the risk of being truly happy. And I am tired of avoiding that risk. Emma turned to look at him. What are you saying? I am saying that Sophie is right. I am saying that if you are willing to take the leap, I am ready to stop being careful and start being brave. Michael Parker, are you asking me to move in with you officially? Emma Richardson, I'm asking you to marry me. The words were out before he had consciously decided to say them, but as soon as they hung in the air between them, Michael knew they were exactly right. Emma stared at him, her eyes wide with shock and joy and terror. Are you serious? I have never been more serious about anything in my life. I love you, Emma. I love the family we are building together. I love the future I can imagine with you in it. I do not want to wait months or years to make it official. I want to marry you and give Sophie the stable, loving family she deserves and build the life we should have had 16 years ago if we had been brave enough to fight for it then. Michael, I know it is crazy. I know we have only been back in each other's lives for 3 weeks, but some things are worth the risk of being crazy. Emma reached up and cupped his face in her hands, her eyes searching his. Yes, she said simply. Yes, yes, I will marry you. Yes, I want to be Sophie's stepmother. Yes, I want to build a life with you that is about love and art and family and taking beautiful risks together. And then they were kissing again, but this time it felt different. This time it felt like a beginning instead of a reconnection, like a promise instead of a question. When? Emma asked breathlessly. As soon as possible. Tomorrow, if we can figure out the paperwork. What about Sophie? Sophie will be over the moon. But more importantly, what about you? Are you ready to become Mrs. Parker? I have been ready since I was 22 years old. I just did not know it until now. The next morning, Sophie woke up before her alarm and appeared in the kitchen at 6:30, fully dressed and practically vibrating with excitement. "Is it true? Are you and Miss Emma really getting married?" she asked, launching herself at Michael before he had finished pouring his first cup of coffee. "Good morning to you too, sweetheart," Michael laughed, catching her in a hug. "Yes, it is true. Miss Emma and I are engaged." "Engaged!" Sophie shrieked with delight, then immediately clapped her hand over her mouth. "Sorry, I did not mean to be so loud. But this is the most exciting thing that has ever happened in our whole house." Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway, her hair tousled from sleep, wearing one of Michael's Stanford t-shirts that she had borrowed the night before. "I heard celebrating," she said, smiling at Sophie's obvious joy. "Miss Emma, you are going to be my mom!" Sophie launched herself at Emma with equal enthusiasm. "Well, technically I will be your stepmother, but if you want to think of me as your mom, that would make me very happy. Can I call you Mom instead of Miss Emma?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Sophie, I would be honored if you called me Mom." "Mom," Sophie said experimentally, testing how the word felt. "Mom, can I help plan the wedding? Can I pick out flowers? Can I wear a fancy dress?" "You can help with everything," Emma assured her. "In fact, I was hoping you would be my maid of honor." "What does a maid of honor do?" "She stands next to the bride during the wedding ceremony and makes sure everything goes perfectly. She also helps with all the planning and preparations." Sophie's eyes went wide. "That is the most important job ever. I accept." Michael watched this exchange with a heart so full he thought it might burst. 3 weeks ago, Sophie had been a little girl who missed having a mother figure in her life. Now, she was going to have exactly that. And more importantly, she was going to have it with someone who genuinely loved her and wanted to be part of her daily life. "So when is the wedding?" Sophie asked, settling into her chair at the breakfast table. Michael and Emma looked at each other. "Well, we were thinking maybe we could have a small ceremony in a few weeks," Michael said. "Nothing too elaborate, just close friends and family." "A few weeks?" Sophie's face fell slightly. "That is not very much time to plan everything." "We do not need a big fancy wedding, sweetheart. We just want to make it official so we can start being a real family." "But what about Mom's art exhibition? Petra said there might be galleries interested in her landscape paintings. Should not we wait until after that is all set up?" Emma sat down next to Sophie, touched by her consideration. "That is very thoughtful of you to think about my work, but the art exhibition can happen whether I am married or single. Besides, having you and Daddy there to support me will make it even more special. Plus," Michael added, "I have a feeling your new mom is going to be very successful with her art career, and I do not want to wait for the perfect moment." "Perfect moments do not exist, but perfect feelings do." "And how do you feel right now?" Sophie asked. "Perfect," Michael and Emma said simultaneously, then laughed at their timing. "See? That proves you are meant to be together." After breakfast, while Sophie got ready for school, Michael called his sister Jennifer in Portland to share the news. "You are engaged, Michael. That is wonderful. Tell me everything about her. Actually, Jen, you already know everything about her. Remember Emma Richardson from college?" There was a long pause. "Emma Richardson? Your Emma Richardson? The one from all those photos you showed me? The one you never got over?" "That is the one." "Oh my God, Michael, how did you find her? Where has she been? How did this happen so fast?" Michael explained the farmer's market recognition, the studio arrangement, the gradual realization that they were meant to be together. "This is like something out of a romance novel," Jennifer said when he finished. "Sophie recognized her from your graduation photo after 16 years. I know it sounds unbelievable, but it really happened exactly like that." "Michael, I am so happy for you. You have been alone for so long, and I know how much you loved her back in college. When do I get to meet her officially? How about you come down for the wedding? We are thinking about having it here at the house, maybe in the backyard with just close family and friends. I would not miss it for anything. Mom and Dad are going to be over the moon. They always liked Emma, and they have been worried about you being single for so many years. What do you mean they always liked Emma? They barely met her. Michael, you brought her home for Christmas senior year, remember? She helped Mum with dinner and spent 2 hours showing Dad her photography portfolio. They thought she was perfect for you. Michael had forgotten that Christmas visit, but now the memory came flooding back. Emma charming his parents, fitting seamlessly into his family dynamics, making everyone feel comfortable and appreciated. I think they are going to like her even more now, he said. After he hung up with Jennifer, Emma found him in his office. How did your sister take the news? She is thrilled. Apparently my whole family has been hoping for this reunion for 16 years without telling me. Really? Really? She wants to come to the wedding, and she said my parents are going to be over the moon. Emma sat down in the chair across from his desk. Michael, can I tell you something that might sound strange? After everything we have been through in the past few weeks, I doubt anything could sound strange anymore. I feel like I'm not just marrying you. I feel like I am marrying back into a life that was always supposed to be mine, but that I was too young and scared to claim the first time around. What do you mean? I mean that your family feels familiar to me. This house feels familiar. Even Sophie feels like the daughter I was always meant to have, but never knew I was waiting for. It is like the last 16 years were just a detour, and now I am finally getting back to the path I was supposed to be on all along. Michael came around the desk and pulled her to her feet, wrapping his arms around her. You know what I think. What? I think we both had to go through those 16 years of separate experiences to become the people who were ready for this kind of love. If we had stayed together after college, we might have taken each other for granted, or let practical concerns override the emotional connection. Now we know how rare and precious this is. So, you think everything happened exactly as it was supposed to? I think Sophie recognizing you from that graduation photo was the universe giving us a second chance at getting it right. But Emma stood on her toes to kiss him, and Michael thought that some of the best gifts in life came disguised as ordinary Saturday mornings at farmers' markets, when 7-year-old children with artistic souls pointed at strangers and announced that love had been waiting patiently for 16 years to find its way home. 2 weeks later, Emma's landscape paintings were hanging in the Meridian Gallery in Palo Alto, and she was so nervous she could barely speak. They look incredible, Michael said, adjusting his tie as they walked through the gallery space before the opening reception. These paintings are going to make you famous. I do not want to be famous. I just want people to connect with the work. Sophie appeared at Emma's elbow, wearing a navy blue dress and looking exceptionally grown up for 7 years old. Mom, everyone is going to love your paintings because they make people feel things. That is what good art does, remember? You taught me that. When did you become so wise? I learned it from my mom, obviously. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Sophie had been calling her mom for 2 weeks now, and it still made her emotional every single time. Are you ready for this? Michael asked, taking her hand as people began to arrive for the opening. As ready as I will ever be. The gallery filled quickly with Bay Area art collectors, local artists, and curious neighbors who had heard about Emma's return to California. Petra had brought several friends from the restaurant industry, and Michael had invited Tony Chen and Maria Rodriguez from Cloud Secure Analytics, along with their spouses. But the moment that made Emma's heart sing was when she saw an elderly couple studying her mountain landscape painting with intense concentration. "Excuse me," the woman said, approaching Emma with a warm smile. "Are you the artist who created this series?" "Yes, I am Emma Richardson. These paintings are extraordinary. They capture something I have been trying to put into words my entire life about what it feels like to come home to California after living somewhere else." "Thank you so much. That is exactly what I was hoping to convey. My husband and I lived in Chicago for 30 years, and when we retired and moved back to the Bay Area, we had this overwhelming sense of recognition, of rightness. Your paintings show that feeling perfectly." The woman's husband joined the conversation. "We would like to purchase this mountain piece if it is available. It would look perfect in our living room, and we would love to wake up every morning to that reminder of why we came home." Emma felt a rush of pride and disbelief. Her first sale, to people who truly understood what she was trying to express through her work. "I would be honored to have it in your home." As the evening progressed, Emma sold 3 more paintings and received inquiries about future work from 2 other galleries. But the moment that meant the most to her was when she overheard Sophie talking to Tony Chen's daughter, Katie. "My mom painted all these pictures in our house," Sophie was saying proudly. "She has a studio right next to my daddy's office, and sometimes I get to watch her work. She is teaching me how to see light the way artists see it." "Your mom is really talented," Katie replied. "I know, and she is going to marry my daddy next weekend, so she will officially be my mom forever." "That is so cool. You are lucky." "I am the luckiest girl in the whole world." Michael appeared at Emma's side, handing her a glass of wine. "How are you feeling?" "Like I cannot believe this is really happening. 6 months ago, I was struggling to pay rent in a tiny apartment in Redwood City. Now I have sold 4 paintings in one evening, and I have gallery representation, and I'm getting married in 6 days to the love of my life. You deserve all of it, Em. Your talent, your success, your happiness. All of it." Emma looked around the gallery, at the paintings that had been born in the studio Michael had given her, at Sophie, chatting confidently with other children about art and creativity, at the life that had grown from a 7-year-old's observational skills and a graduation photograph that had waited 16 years to fulfill its purpose. "Michael, do you ever think about what would have happened if Sophie had not recognized me that day at the farmer's market?" "Every day. And every day I am grateful that she has such a good eye for faces, and such a good heart for recognizing what our family was missing." As the reception wound down and they prepared to leave, the gallery owner, Patricia Williams, approached Emma with a business proposition. "Emma, I would like to offer you a permanent representation agreement based on tonight's response. I think we could easily sell everything you create. Are you interested in discussing terms?" "Very interested." "Wonderful. Why do not you come in next week and we can talk about your artistic goals and how I can help you achieve them?" In the car on the way home, Sophie chatted excitedly about all the people who had admired Emma's work and told her how lucky she was to have such a talented mother. "Did you hear what that one lady said about the mountain painting making her cry happy tears?" Sophie asked. "I did hear that. I think that means your art is really, really good, Mom. I think it means I'm finally painting what I'm supposed to be painting." "What were you painting before that was wrong?" Emma considered this question seriously. "I was not painting wrong things, exactly, but I was painting what I thought other people wanted to see instead of painting what I felt in my heart. There is a big difference. And now you paint what you feel in your heart. Now I paint what it feels like to be part of this family, to live in this place, to wake up every morning knowing I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. That sounds like the best kind of painting there is." "It is, sweetheart. It absolutely is." The morning of the wedding dawned clear and warm, with the kind of perfect October weather that made Northern California feel like paradise. Emma woke up in the guest room of Michael's house, where she had spent the night at Sophie's insistence that the bride and groom should not see each other before the ceremony. "Mom, wake up! It is your wedding day!" Sophie burst through the door at 7 in the morning, already dressed in her pale pink flower girl dress and carrying a tray with coffee and toast. "Good morning, my beautiful maid of honor. Did you sleep at all last night?" "Maybe a little bit. I was too excited to sleep much. Are you excited or nervous?" "Both," Emma admitted, accepting the coffee gratefully, but mostly excited. Sophie climbed onto the bed next to her. "Mom, can I tell you something?" "Always. I used to wish every night before I went to sleep that Daddy would find someone to love who would also love me. But I never imagined that person would be someone as perfect as you." Emma felt tears well up in her eyes. "Sophie, you are going to make me cry, and I have not even put my makeup on yet. Happy tears, the happiest tears ever." Jennifer arrived at 10 with their parents, Robert and Patricia Parker, who immediately swept Emma into enthusiastic hugs and declarations that they had never given up hope that she and Michael would find their way back to each other. "You look exactly the same as you did in college," Patricia said, holding Emma at arm's length to study her face. "Maybe even more beautiful." "That is very kind of you to say." "It is not kind, it is true. You are glowing with happiness, dear. It is written all over your face." The ceremony was held in Michael and Emma's backyard, under the oak tree that had been one of the things that convinced Michael to buy the house in the first place. 25 close friends and family members gathered on folding chairs arranged in a semicircle, with the Santa Cruz Mountains providing a dramatic backdrop. Emma wore a simple ivory dress that she had found at a boutique in downtown Palo Alto. With Sophie's help and enthusiastic approval, she carried a bouquet of white roses and eucalyptus branches and wore the pearl earrings that had been her grandmother's. But the moment that took her breath away was when she walked out of the house and saw Michael waiting for her under the oak tree. He wore a navy suit with a white rose boutonniere that matched her bouquet, and when he saw her, his face lit up with such pure joy that Emma almost started crying before the ceremony even began. Sophie walked ahead of her, scattering rose petals with the serious concentration she brought to all important tasks. When Emma reached Michael's side, Sophie stood next to them, holding Emma's bouquet and beaming with pride at her crucial role in the proceedings. The officiant, a friend of Michael's from Stanford who had become a judge, kept the ceremony simple and heartfelt. "Michael and Emma, you have chosen to celebrate your wedding here in the place where you have built your life together, surrounded by the people who love you most. Before you make your promises to each other, Sophie has something she would like to say." Sophie stepped forward, pulling a folded piece of paper from her dress pocket. "I wrote this myself," she announced to the gathered guests. "Daddy and Mom, before you came back into our lives, our family was good, but it was not complete. Mom, you make Daddy smile in a way I had never seen before, and you make me feel like I have everything I ever wanted. Daddy, you make Mom laugh and feel safe and proud of her art. Together, you make our house feel like the happiest place in the world. I am so excited that you are getting married and that we get to be a real family forever." There was not a dry eye among the wedding guests, and Emma had to take several deep breaths to compose herself before she could recite her vows. "Michael, 16 years ago, we promised each other that distance was just geography, that what we had was stronger than separate coasts and different dreams. We were right about the strength of our connection, but we were wrong about the timing. We needed those years apart to become the people who were ready for this kind of love. Today, I promise you that I will never let fear or practicality or the opinions of others override what my heart knows to be true." I promise to support your dreams and build new dreams with you. I promise to love Sophie as my own daughter and to help you raise her to be confident, creative, and kind. I promise to make art that reflects the beauty of the life we are building together, and to always remember that the best masterpiece I will ever create is this family. Michael's vows were equally heartfelt. Emma, you have taught me that the best adventures are not the ones you plan, but the ones that find you when you are brave enough to recognize them. You have shown me that home is not a place, but a feeling. And that feeling is what I experience every morning when I wake up in a house that includes your laughter, your creativity, and your love. I promise to support your artistic career and to never let practical concerns override the importance of beauty and meaning in our lives. I promise to love you through every season and every challenge, and to always remember that Sophie's recognition of you in that graduation photograph was not coincidence, but destiny finally getting its timing right. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Michael kissed Emma with 16 years of longing and hope and gratitude, while Sophie cheered and the wedding guests applauded and the Santa Cruz Mountains stood witness to the completion of a love story that had been waiting patiently for its second chance. The reception was held on the same backyard, with string lights hung from the oak tree and tables arranged to take advantage of the mountain view. Emma's landscape painting, the first one she had completed in Michael's studio, had been moved outside for the evening and displayed on an easel near the head table. During dinner, Tony Chen stood up to give a toast. I have known Michael Parker for 20 years, first as his college roommate, then as his business partner, and always as his friend. In all that time, I have never seen him as happy as he has been since Emma came back into his life. Emma, you have given him back parts of himself that he had forgotten existed. And Sophie, you have gained not just a stepmother, but an artistic mentor and a second parent who clearly adores you. To Michael, Emma, and Sophie, may your family continue to grow in love, creativity, and happiness. As the evening progressed, Emma found herself moving through the celebration in a state of almost dreamlike contentment. Sophie danced with her grandfather, Michael's father, while Patricia Parker showed Emma photo albums from Michael's childhood that she had brought especially for the occasion. I saved all his school art projects, Patricia confided, pointing to a crayon drawing of a house with a family of 3 stick figures. He always drew families with children, even when he was very young. I think he knew he was meant to be a father. He is an incredible father. Sophie is so lucky to have him, and now she's lucky to have both of you. Emma, I hope you know how much it means to our family that you are part of it officially now. It means everything to me, Patricia. I have missed having a family. Later, as the guests began to leave and Sophie helped collect empty wine glasses with the efficiency of someone who took her hostess duties seriously, Emma found herself standing in the same spot where she had painted her first landscape study of the mountains. Michael appeared beside her, loosening his tie. How are you feeling, Mrs. Parker? Like the luckiest woman alive. And like I cannot quite believe this is really my life now. It is really your life, our life, the 3 of us, officially and forever. Emma looked at their wedding guests mingling in the backyard, at Sophie organizing the cleanup with her typical attention to detail, at the mountain view that was now permanently hers to wake up to every morning. Michael, do you remember what you said to me the night I decided to stay in California? Which part? You said that maybe the best love stories are not the ones that happen fast and dramatically, but the ones that grow slowly and naturally from friendship and compatibility and the simple joy of sharing daily life with someone who makes ordinary moments feel extraordinary. I remember. You were right. This feels extraordinary, but it also feels like the most natural thing in the world. That is because it is both. We are both. Sophie appeared beside them, having finished her cleanup duties. Mom and Dad, can I say something? Of course, sweetheart. I am really glad I have a good memory for faces, because if I had not recognized Mom from Daddy's graduation picture, none of this would have happened. Emma knelt down to Sophie's level. You know what I think. What? I think you were meant to recognize me. I think the universe was just waiting for the right moment and the right little girl with the right artistic eye to bring us all together. Do you really think the universe plans things like that? I think the universe plants possibilities everywhere, and sometimes, if we are very lucky and very observant, we notice them and help them grow into something beautiful. Sophie considered this seriously. So I helped grow our family. You grew our family, Sophie. You made it possible for all of us to find each other again. That makes me feel very important. You are very important. You are the most important person in both our lives. As they stood together in their backyard, surrounded by the evidence of their celebration, Emma realized that this was the moment she would remember when she was old and grey, looking back on her life. Not the gallery opening or the successful career or even the wedding ceremony itself, but this quiet moment with her new husband and daughter, standing in the place where she had learned to paint what it felt like to be home. 6 months later, Emma stood in her studio, putting finishing touches on a painting of Sophie at her easel, working on her latest watercolor masterpiece. The spring light streaming through the windows was perfect for detail work, and Emma had learned to take advantage of these golden hour sessions when her creativity felt most alive. "Mom, are you almost finished?" Sophie called from her position at the small easel Michael had bought her for Christmas. "I want to see how you painted my concentration face. Just a few more brushstrokes, sweetheart." Emma stepped back to study the painting, which captured not just Sophie's physical appearance, but something essential about her focus and artistic passion. In the 6 months since the wedding, Sophie had developed her skills dramatically, and Emma was seriously considering enrolling her in more advanced art classes. "It is perfect," Michael said from the studio doorway. "You have captured exactly what I see when I watch her work, which is pure artistic joy, the same expression I see on your face when you are painting." Emma smiled, wiping paint from her hands. The studio had become even more of a creative sanctuary since she and Michael had officially settled into married life. She had completed 12 new paintings since the wedding, and Patricia Williams had sold every single one. Emma's California landscape series was gaining recognition throughout the Bay Area, and she had been featured in 2 regional art magazines. "How was your day?" she asked, moving into Michael's arms for their daily reunion kiss. "Productive. We signed the contract with the Sacramento hospital system, so Cloud Secure Analytics is officially expanding into Northern California healthcare networks." "That is wonderful. You must be so proud." "I am. But I am more proud of this." He gestured around the studio, at Emma's latest paintings, at Sophie working intently on her watercolor. "I am proud of the life we have built together. Speaking of which, I have news. Good news or great news. Great news. Patricia wants to give me a solo exhibition in the fall. Not just the landscape series, but a retrospective of my work since returning to California. She thinks I am ready for a major show. Emma, that is incredible. And I want to include the painting I am working on of Sophie. I want to show how art connects generations, how creativity can be passed from parent to child." Sophie looked up from her watercolor. "You want to put a painting of me in a real art exhibition. I want to show the world how talented and dedicated you are as a young artist. Will people come and look at it and say nice things about my concentration face?" I think they will say that you are clearly destined to be an artist yourself someday. I am definitely going to be an artist. But I also want to be a mom like you, who teaches her children about creativity and beauty. Emma felt her heart swell with love and pride. That sounds like the perfect combination of dreams. That evening, after Sophie had gone to bed, Michael and Emma sat on their back deck, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the sunset paint the Santa Cruz Mountains in shades of gold and pink. "Do you ever think about the path that brought us here?" Emma asked, nestled against Michael's shoulder. "Every day, do you?" "I think about how many tiny decisions had to align perfectly for Sophie to recognize me that day at the farmer's market. If I had chosen a different spot for my easel, if you had decided to shop somewhere else, if Sophie had been distracted by something and not noticed my face, do you think it would have happened eventually anyway? That we would have found each other again somehow? I hope so. But I am grateful it happened when it did, how it did, with Sophie as our catalyst. She is sleeping much better now. Have you noticed? Ever since the wedding, she seems more settled, more confident. She feels secure now. She knows she has two parents who love her and are not going anywhere. Michael was quiet for a moment, watching the mountain silhouette darken against the evening sky. "Emma, can I tell you something?" "Always." "I have been thinking about having another child with you, giving Sophie a sibling, expanding our family." Emma turned to look at him, surprised by the direction of his thoughts. "Really? I know we have only been married for 6 months, and I know you're just getting established in your career again, but watching you with Sophie, seeing how natural you are as a mother, it makes me want to experience the whole journey with you from the beginning." Emma felt excitement and terror in equal measure. "Michael, I would love that. I would love to have your baby, to give Sophie a brother or sister, to expand this family we have created." "Are you sure? Because it would mean adjusting your art career, at least temporarily, and I know how important your work is to you." "My work is important, but it is not more important than our family. Besides, I think becoming a mother would probably inspire my art in new ways, just like falling in love with you and Sophie has inspired everything I have painted since I came back to California. So, we should start trying. We should definitely start trying." They kissed as the first stars appeared over the mountains, and Emma thought that this was what complete happiness felt like. Not the absence of challenges or uncertainty, but the presence of love deep enough to weather any storm, creativity fulfilling enough to justify every sacrifice, and family strong enough to support dreams she had not even imagined yet. 2 years later, Emma stood in the Meridian Gallery holding 8-month-old Thomas Parker, while Sophie, now 9 years old, led a group of adults through an impromptu explanation of Emma's latest exhibition. "This painting shows our backyard in winter," Sophie was saying with the confidence of someone who had grown up surrounded by art. "Mom painted it when she was really pregnant with Tommy, and you can see how she made the bare trees look beautiful instead of sad. That is because she paints what things feel like, not just what they look like." "And what does winter feel like in your family?" asked one of the gallery visitors. "Like waiting for something wonderful to happen. Like being cozy and safe while everything outside is changing." Emma smiled, bouncing Thomas gently as he began to fuss. Her latest exhibition, titled Seasons of Home, documented the changes in their family and landscape over the past 2 years. The centerpiece was a large canvas showing their backyard in all 4 seasons, with subtle changes in the background that suggested the growth of their family. "She is quite the art critic," said Patricia Williams, approaching Emma with a glass of sparkling cider. "Sophie could probably give gallery tours professionally. She has grown up thinking that art is a natural part of daily life. It has made her very comfortable talking about creativity and meaning. And how are you adjusting to motherhood with a career? I know it is not easy to balance everything. Emma looked at Thomas, whose dark hair and hazel eyes marked him unmistakably as Michael's son, then at Sophie, who was now discussing brushwork techniques with a collector twice her age. Actually, it has been easier than I expected. Having Sophie as a big sister has been incredible, and Michael has been so supportive of my work that I have been able to paint almost as much as I did before Thomas was born. The new paintings show a different depth, a more complex understanding of light and emotion. Motherhood has clearly influenced your artistic vision. Having children has taught me that the most beautiful art comes from the most ordinary moments. Feeding a baby at sunrise, watching a 9-year-old discover a new painting technique, seeing my husband read bedtime stories to both children, that is where real beauty lives. Michael appeared at her side, having finished a conversation with the gallery owner about Emma's next exhibition. How is my favorite artist doing? Your favorite artist is exhausted but happy. Your favorite baby is getting hungry, and your favorite 9-year-old is holding court like she owns the gallery. She does own it, in a way. This is her world too now. Speaking of which, Sophie has been asking if she can have her own art show next year for her 10th birthday. What did you tell her? I told her that if she keeps working as hard as she has been, we could probably arrange something. Patricia has been encouraging her to think about participating in the regional youth art competition. She would love that. Thomas began to cry, and Emma realized he was too hungry to wait any longer for attention. I should probably feed him. Can you handle the rest of the reception? Go ahead. Sophie and I can charm the remaining guests. Emma slipped into Patricia's office behind the gallery, where she had set up a comfortable space for nursing. As she settled into the chair with Thomas, she could hear Sophie's voice carrying from the main gallery, explaining to someone the difference between her mother's landscape work and her portrait studies. Through the office window, Emma could see the painting that had started it all, the mountain landscape she had completed during her first week in Michael's studio. It hung in a place of honor, marked with a small placard that read, "Not for sale, Artist's Collection." That one is staying in our family forever, she whispered to Thomas, who was finally settling down to eat. That is the painting that taught me what home looks like. When Michael found her 20 minutes later, Emma was still sitting in the gallery office, Thomas asleep in her arms, looking at the painting that represented the beginning of their life together. Ready to go home? He asked softly. More than ready. Sophie appeared in the doorway, her cheeks flushed with excitement from her impromptu gallery tour. Mom, everyone said I explained your paintings really well. One lady asked if I want to be an artist when I grow up, and I told her I already am an artist. I'm just still learning new techniques. That is the perfect answer, sweetheart. As they gathered their things and prepared to leave, Emma took one more look around the gallery at the paintings that documented their family's growth and happiness. In 2 years, she had gone from a struggling single artist to a successful wife, mother, and recognized creative professional. But the real measure of her success was not hanging on the gallery walls. It was sleeping peacefully in her arms, asking intelligent questions about art history, and wrapping his arm around her shoulders as they walked to the car. Are you happy, Mom? Sophie asked as they drove through downtown Palo Alto toward home. Happier than I ever imagined possible. Even when Tommy cries in the middle of the night and interrupts your painting time, especially then. Because that is when I remember how lucky we are to have such a beautiful, chaotic, perfect life together. Michael reached across the car to squeeze Emma's free hand. I love you, Mrs. Parker. I love you too, Mr. Parker. All of you. And as they drove home through the California evening, past the farmer's market where their story had begun, toward the house where Emma's graduation photograph still sat on Michael's desk next to newer family photos, Emma realized that the most successful art she had ever created was not hanging in any gallery. It was sitting in the back seat, asking questions about color theory, sleeping peacefully in her arms, and driving them all safely home to the place where creativity and love and family had learned to flourish together under the shadow of the Santa Cruz Mountains. In a house where an unused room had been transformed into a studio where dreams became paintings and paintings became the visual record of a love story that had been 16 years in the making but would last for the rest of their lives. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.